So you're probably searching wondering, how do I make passive income in land, right? How can land investing work for me? Now, there's no doubt land investing can be a very lucrative business, whether you're doing it passively or actively. The question is, which one do you want to do and which one's better? And which one's the right fit for you so you can actually create more passive income right now using that strategy. Now, if you actually hang in to us at the end here, I'm going to talk about not just what I've done with passive income with land, but how I was able to do it myself with just a few $100,000 to generate over $10,000 a month. And I did with doing completely hands-off, didn't touch it, 100% passive. Despite what everybody will tell you, you can actually do it passively. So let's dig into how that really works. Okay, so the first option you have when it comes to land investing is the DIY option, do it yourself, right? Now, there are plenty of coaches out there. Some of them are even friends of mine. Great guys, shout out to you guys like Brent and Mark. You guys are awesome. Now, those guys will teach you how to do it yourself. And I'll tell you, you can make a lot of money with very little out of pocket. Here's the thing, you're gonna exchange time and energy along with some of that money to be able to get this business off the ground. Like I said, it can be a very lucrative business. But don't ever for 1 second believe that you do nothing, that you just sit back and collect the returns. If you're doing the DIY version of this business, you are doing it yourself. You might get a team in place, like there are ways to get systems where you can have assistants and team members in place to help you, act on certain parts of the business. But at the end of the day, you're still running the business. So understand that this is gonna be at least a part-time to full-time business that could generate tens of thousands of dollars a month for you. So you could make a lot more money. But remember, it takes time, takes some expertise, and it takes a little bit of money and capital to get that working for you. Now, I had one client that did this. She said, you know what, I'm actually interested in this. And I've noticed that people that like land investing, they're kind of a little bit like engineer-minded. They like to know how things work a bit. Sometimes they like to make a lot of money. Sometimes they're just very they might even be big spenders and they just want to know how to make money fast, right? This could be a great option. And so she started going through that process. She even hired a small little team to help her out and support her. Now, she also on the side had her full-time job and business that she was doing. So she was doing that while also building up this business on the side. Now for her, after about a year or so, she said to me, she's like, Chris, this has been awesome. And I love that I'm employing people. I love that I'm giving people jobs. I feel like I'm helping people out. She's like, I'm even, making money with this land investing. But honestly, I'm kind of burning out a little bit because it's distracting me from my focus in my actual work. And I love my work. I love doing it, but I'm spending a lot of time on this land business too, and it really is making it tough on me. Should I keep the business or not? And so we discussed that for several minutes, just weighing the pros and the cons, because obviously she could make a lot more money doing the business, especially doing that money with less money out of pocket. But what it came down to, I said, well, other than the money, why would you do this business? She said, that's a great question. I don't know if I would. I think I just did it for the money. I said, well, what makes this any different than just having a job? Whether you just go in and show up for a paycheck. She said, you're right. You know what? I think I need to find a way to, I don't know if I want to sell this business to somebody else, which is always an option, right? Or maybe I just do it passively. And so she decided to go the passive option. She actually sold her business, all of her properties to somebody else. And then they actually gave her more of a partnership. They said, listen, we'll take over all these properties, but then we'll actually become a partner in the sense that we'll actively manage it. We'll still split the income, but you get some of the income too. But you'll be hands off at this point. We'll just take it over, but you'll get some of the income, but you will get a pay cut because we're going to take some of that income for ourselves. She said, you know what? It's worth it to me. I'll do it. Now, that's not everybody. So for some of you, you might say, no, I want the sky's the limit income on this thing. I want to do it fast and hard, and I love it. That's great. If you love that business and it's something that speaks to you, then do it, and you do it well. That's the important thing. But if you're someone that says, you know what, I really don't want to. This is like me. I was the person I said, I really don't want to learn everything involved in doing that business, but I have cash. I have capital. Could I find somebody who would be willing to use that capital for me? And I actually went to one of my friends. I said, listen, if you ever change your mind, I would love to be a financing partner in a business with you. I would love to be a business partner. Well, a few years later, that opportunity came. He said, all right, Chris, I'll do it. I'll even charge you like $100 grand or so for the business to get started because I'll pay for our bills for the next few years and paying for my team and all the work that we're doing. And then the rest of your money just goes in to invest. And so I started at first with like $200,000, $100,000 to start the business, $100,000 to invest. Eventually I added another $50,000 just months later to go with it. So in total we had about $250,000 invested, but only $150,000 was actually buying the land. Now, they were doing all the work. They were transacting everything. They were the ones actually buying and selling the properties. And then they were turning around and then they were seller financing to the people that bought it from us. So we would buy it wholesale while somebody else would turn around and buy it at retail, and then they would pay us the mortgage payments for the next 5 or 10 years. So for example, there's a property I saw in our portfolio that we bought for about $6,000, but then we turned around and sold for about $20,000. And then we sold it to them for a number of years, where now the income coming from that property was about $400 a month. And we said, well, that's pretty cool. That's awesome, because now we got this property pay us $400 a month, and I only invested $6,000 up front. That's a pretty awesome return. That's like $5,000 a year from $6,000. You do the math, that's pretty amazing, right? And so we're making really good money off of that. Now, granted, they're paying us principal and interest, so it's not like I get to keep, although I get the money back, still I want to reinvest it to keep building my income. And so that's what we've been doing. Every time we get cash flow, I just put it back in the bank account, let it grow, and then we buy more land with it, and then I do the same thing. Sell it, get the financing from it, get people buying us on payments, and it keeps going and going. This is why, as we've reinvested our income over 2.5 years, it's driven our income up to over $11,000 a month, with now a little over $400,000 invested, right? That's the beauty of this, is that land can be very profitable. Now, granted, I could have made more money on this with the money I used if I did it myself. But remember, I didn't want to be an active investor. I wanted to be a passive investor. So I partnered with them instead, said, I will finance and pay for everything. You just do the work. And that can be a great exchange, however you work that out. So just know you do have options, and there's great options you can make money with. Okay, so I had other clients that started to do this too. Now, some only started a year ago, and they'll see my results, and they'll get discouraged, because they'll say, well, Chris, I started out with doing $150,000 like you did, and I'm only at $2,000 a month, and I've been almost a year in. And I was like, that's great. Guess what? That's what mine would look like too. It takes a slower time to build and grow that business. Like I said, if you did it yourself, you get all the systems in place. It does take time even to learn it and get the systems down if you're trying to do it actively, but you can make a lot more money. When you do it passively, the great thing is still you're not doing jack squat for it. You're getting it passive, right? It's passive. Again, it's a partnership, it's real assets, it's all there, right? But you're not doing anything. So it does require some patience. You're not gonna get rich quick and overnight. Anybody who tries to tell you that, you should kick their butts or something. We don't want to listen to that stuff. That's just a lie. That's usually a sales tactic for you to just buy into something, because they'll say, yeah, you'll make $20,000 a month in just 2 months or whatever. That's not the case, guys. It takes time, and especially if you're a passive investor, it's going to take a little bit longer. But I can assure you that first year, yeah, I got about $2,000. About a year and a half in, I was like $4,000 a month. And then when I was about 2 years in, it was up about $6,000 or $7,000 a month. It was like, oh, okay, I kind of see where this is going. But then a year later, it's almost double. It's now $11,000 a month. Why? Because we're compounding our income. So how people talk about how compound interest is so awesome. Imagine what it's like when you take all of those cash flow and you start reinvesting it, and it just grows and grows and grows. It just builds on itself. It creates like this big snowball, right? Just like the cartoons, and someone gets in a snowball and it gets bigger and bigger, it rolls down the hill, and pretty soon it's like massive, huge ball that's like the size of a mountain. It's the same thing. It takes time. I can tell you, if I wait another year, I'm trying to hope that gets closer to like $18,000 to $20,000 a month. And even if it's not, who cares? If I invested $500,000 to make $18,000 a month, I'm totally cool with that. All right? And I hope you are too. That's the point, right? Is that you can make great money in land, whether you do it yourself or you do it passively. The question you have to ask yourself is, which one would I want to do? What are my goals? What's my situation? Do I have a lot of capital? If you don't have a lot of cash, then the passive income option is probably out. You might want to go with the active income option. You might be like one of my clients who, had the active income business, but then decided later on to sell that business to somebody else, have them manage it and do that. I even had one person that came to us. He was a client. He says, listen, I've got a situation where my sister-in-law, she was widowed recently. Her husband was the one doing this land business. Now she's inherited this land business and doesn't know what to do with it. So he's like, now I'm managing the land business and paying her the money. I said, that's great. One, he didn't have to use any of his own money. He's making a couple $1,000 a month by managing her portfolio, while she's getting paid passively to do it too. That's awesome. So there might be people out there that have a business that maybe don't know what to do with it. If you already understand how to do it from an active standpoint, you can make money from that with no money out of pocket. If you're the passive investor, maybe you're saying, oh, I've got capital, maybe I can buy into that business. Maybe I can buy into somebody else's share, or even just split the money to some level. There's just so many ways you can invest in land. And here's the great thing, guys. Raw land, other than the big island of Hawaii and some other places, there's not more land being made, right? That's the beauty of this, is that land becomes more and more valuable over time because there's so much less of it. And when you can actually use something and have a real asset, you can grow your wealth so much faster than you would. I'll give you one last story here that how this applies. I had one client where she inherited money. They had a bunch of stocks that they inherited, right? I know, because I'm like the anti-financial advisor here. I'm not a big fan of just buying stocks and mutual funds. Well, she inherited some stocks. Her dad told her when she inherited it, he said, listen, just hold on to it. Don't do anything with it. This is 1997. Well, now in 2024, she says, Chris, we got that money. It was like $80,000. Now it's worth roughly about $200,000. She said, but my sister, she did something different. She got the same amount of money because we split it 50-50. She got the same amount of money, but she turned it into millions of dollars because she bought real estate with it back in 1997, and now it's turned into millions of dollars. She's like, for us, a couple $100,000. We made money, but it was only like, we only made like a little bit on that money, but she made millions. That's the difference, guys. That's why raw land can be so profitable. So decide what you want to do. Do I want to be an active investor in raw land, or do I want to be a passive investor? Now, if you want to figure out how you can invest passively in real estate investing, reach out to us at moneyripples.com.